welcome back to the Taylah Louise Budgets channel and another video with my face. This is potentially the one that you have been waiting for. I'm finally filming my travel itinerary budget holiday breakdown video. We're going to go through all things holiday itinerary, my highlights of the trip, my holiday hiccups in terms of what things went wrong, as well as my holiday cost breakdown and just a few little extra tidbits along the way. So I hope that you enjoy. Okay, I have left some room on the side here because I likely will put up some of my Instagram content. I've been making reels about my trips with some nice music in the background, so head over to _ Taylah Louise to check those out in full, but I'll put little snippets as they're relevant on the screen while I'm editing this video. I hope. I really don't know what this is going to end up like. It's been a video that I have put off filming because it's kind of hard to work out what to share, what's going to be helpful. I'm noticing that my glasses are getting the sunlight and are going a little bit tinted, but I need them because I've got some notes and we're going to get into it. So, where did I go? What did I do? If you're new to my channel, I recently was saving up for a European holiday and my partner and I did go to Italy and Greece for 3 weeks in end of December, start of January. We live in Australia, so it is a long way to travel and it was the best time. Honestly, the further it gets away from when we actually were there, the more fond the memories are. Honestly, it was hands down incredible. Let's start at square one. So the 29th of December, we flew out of Brisbane at 11 p.m. So late flight, hoping we could sleep on the plane. So in order to get from Brisbane to Italy, we actually had to stop in Doha in Qatar. So that was about a 7-hour flight to Doha, Qatar. And then we had another like 15-hour flight from Qatar to Rome. So a lot of time on planes. I cannot stress that enough. It was insane. Then we had to get to our first destination, which was Venice. So from Rome, we then had to catch like a 4 or 5 hour train, I'm not kidding you, to Venice. And we were lucky we got like the last 2 tickets on the train because we had not pre-booked. So that would have been hellish. But after 33 hours of traveling, we finally landed in Venice, and that city at nighttime was beautiful. We did not enjoy it much that night. We had a quick 20-minute walk around the city, had some KFC for dinner and crashed at 9 p.m. That is to Venice. So we only spent 2 nights in Venice, and if I could have gone back and changed that, I would have. I would have spent longer in Venice, but we still had a lovely 2 days, even though the second night I actually slept 4 p.m. till 4 a.m. Yep, 12 hours. But we made the most of that one kind of day that we had in Venice. We got a boat to Murano. That was definitely the highlight of Venice for me. And Murano there's 2 kind of islands, Murano and Burano. And Murano has a glass factory. That's pretty much all it is. And they hand make the glass. And we got to walk through the factory, see this glass horse being made. It was pretty incredible. And yeah, that was a highlight of our trip. We were looking for some Murano glass to buy souvenirs. Love it. And we didn't have time to go to Burano as well, but that would have been nice. That is the colorful kind of buildings, but it was a lot of travel in a short period of time. We decided to just go back to Venice, walk around Venice and see all the sights there, which you can see in my reel are stunning also. Then we headed back down. We caught some trains again, and that was a hellish travel day. You'll hear about that later, but to get to Sorrento. So we landed in Rome because you kind of have to for international flights, went up to Venice, and then we went all the way down to Sorrento because I wanted to see some of the Amalfi coast. And it's obviously very expensive to stay in the Amalfi coast. So we stayed in Sorrento because you could kind of easily catch trains and travel to where you want to go. So we stayed in Sorrento for 3 nights, and that meant that we could do a day trip to Positano near the Amalfi coast, which was stunning, beautiful. And we did a day trip to Pompeii to see the archaeological ruins. As a history teacher, that was next level for me. I loved it. And I must say the highlight of that day trip was the sushi restaurant, like a kilometer away from the ruins. I'm not kidding you. Yes, I went to Italy and went to a sushi restaurant, and now I'm telling you, if you go there, you have to go there. Like, it was insane. It was like called One Sushi, and it was all you can eat. I mean, I ate a lot of pizza and I ate a lot of pasta, and that's all well and good, but you need to go to this sushi restaurant. I'm not kidding you. Then after that 3-day whirlwind, lots of traveling happening there. We went to Rome. We were in Rome for 3 nights. Our accommodation was right near the Trevi Fountain, which was super handy. We were able to walk everywhere. The only thing we had to do was get a taxi from the train station. Yeah, because we got trains. So we had to get a taxi from the train station to the hotel. But after that, we walked the whole time until we got a taxi back to the train station, airport rather, to leave. But this was the most touristy destination of our trip, and I loved that. Again, history teacher, I loved seeing all of the tourist attractions, particularly the Colosseum and the Pantheon and the Trevi Fountain itself and the Spanish Steps. Just being able to just walk all day, every day. We did so much walking. It was so good. And we found the best restaurant. It was Hostaria Pantheon. We ate there literally every day that we were there because it was incredible. And it was a view of the Pantheon. It was so beautiful. We definitely splurged. We spent a lot at that restaurant. It was kind of the only place that I drank quite a lot as well. I was letting myself order the $7 mocktail and then a side of vodka to make it into a cocktail because they didn't have that on the menu for some reason. And yeah, we definitely were let's get a couple of sides, a couple of meals. We ate there. And the reason for that is, if you have seen my reels already, you would know, but we got engaged. So yes, one morning, bright and early, before the crowds, we headed to the Trevi Fountain, which was one of the perks of our accommodation being so close to it. There was maybe 6 people there, maximum was 7 a.m, still pitch black outside. Everything was lit up. It was wonderful. And yeah, we went to go get some photos in front of the Trevi Fountain without any tourists there. And my other half did propose to me. And so yes, we are engaged. I am engaged. I am getting married. I need to start that wedding envelope on the ASAP. But I'm over the moon about that. Obviously, there is no ring yet to show you. We are very likely custom ordering what I want. I know what I want. I've known for 6.5 years what I want. But yeah, we are likely custom ordering. He wants me to be fully involved in that process, which I completely understand. Plus, he was never taking a ring overseas for pickpockets. We are very hyper vigilant about that sort of thing. So there was never going to be a ring, and I was hoping for the proposal, and I got that, and it was a dream come true. I don't want to talk about this anymore because I'm going to get teary and emotional, but yes. A dampener on Rome was that my partner was sick, but that's okay. He made it work. We went to Vatican City as well. We happened to be there at the time when Pope Benedict passed away. So we went to the Vatican and we saw the dead body of Pope Benedict. So rest in peace, him. What a time to be in Rome to experience that. There was so many people there for that especially, and that was an experience and a half, I'd tell you. So then, like I said, we left Rome at the airport and we flew to Greece. So we flew into Santorini. To get there, we had to fly to Athens first and then fly to Santorini, but we got to Santorini and we were there for 3 nights. This was the splurgiest splurge of accommodation of our trip. We stayed at the Athena Luxury Suites, and I booked us a honeymoon suite with a heated pool, etc. The view, absolutely fantastic, no words, incredible. Our hotel was stunning as well. There were about 5 flights of stairs just to get to the reception, and then another 5 flights of stairs just to go into town. So I was exhausted. If I turn down music and turn up the sound of my reels, you can hear me just huffing and panting because I started to get sick. So I did not go well with all of the stairs, but it was stunning. So while I say that Rome was the most touristy best food of the trip, Santorini was my hands down favorite view of the trip. I could sit there and just look at that skyline, look at that ocean forever. It was, there are no words for how incredible it was. There is a little bit of a story, a hiccup, let's say, about that accommodation, and we'll get to that when we do, but buckle in. We didn't really eat much though. The first night in Santorini, we went to a restaurant and we literally were oh, let's just order entrees first and see how we feel. And then we were full. We were stuffed to the brim and we're okay, we promise we'll come back tomorrow. We'll order properly. We'll get entrees and mains tomorrow. But yeah, we didn't that first night there. Then we have a travel day. We spent about 7 hours at the Santorini airport because of bad weather, and we were meant to end up in Mykonos. We were booked to stay in Mykonos for 5 nights. That didn't happen. We did end up staying in Athens for 1 night. because of flights being cancelled and so forth. And then we ended up in Mykonos the next morning, which wasn't so bad. And we still had 4 nights in Mykonos. If I could change things, I might have. We probably didn't need 4 whole nights in Mykonos. However, at this stage, I was very sick. So at this point in time, I kind of had that like, I want to go home. But I'm so glad I went. Mykonos has been my #1 dream destination, dream travel destination, like #1 on my bucket list, places to go, things to see for years. So yes, it is a bit of a surprise to me that Santorini was, in my opinion, better, but it was very different. So Santorini, you were up high and you had this wonderful view of the ocean and the buildings and the white and the blue and blah, 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 blah. Like that was kind of the Santorini experience. Mykonos was definitely more of a beachy experience. Where we were staying in Mykonos, it was kind of right near the beach. We still had a nice view, we were still up kind of high, but the roads were a lot skinnier. It was a lot harder. Like obviously we walked everywhere in Santorini, but in Mykonos we had a car and that was very difficult to navigate, very stressful. But yeah, that was a lot more beachy. And I think being from Australia, we have some of the best beaches in the world. So kind of they couldn't compare. We were also there in winter, which meant we weren't making use of the beaches, but it was still wonderful to be there and see that and experience it. We stayed at Mykonos Musa and it was kind of quaint rooms, but it had a nice deck and we stayed in the one room there that had a jacuzzi. So if we had have flipped it, if we had been to Mykonos first and then Santorini, I probably would have loved Mykonos more. But because we had our like $700 a night accommodation in Santorini, I think Mykonos was like a downgrade, but it was still absolutely incredible. Yeah, no regrets about that. We originally had somewhere else booked that was going to be like an extra $700 or $800 for the 5 nights. And I'm so glad we didn't stay there. I'm so glad we changed it and we stayed in the one that we did. And while I was sick, so we didn't explore and do as much as maybe we could have, I don't regret that either, because it was kind of designed to be a chill time before the long travel back home, because we started our journey home after Mykonos. So because of that, I was also then going back to work the next day. So we'll get into that also. But so after the 4 nights in Mykonos, that was meant to be 5, we were back in Athens. So we had already stayed 1 night in Athens in the layover between Santorini and Mykonos, but then we were going back just because we didn't want to rely on a domestic flight to then catch our international one home, because, and we'll get into it in the budget section, those flights are expensive. But Athens for 1 night just to tide us over, so we would be in Athens to fly out of Athens and go home the following day. So in Athens, the first night that we stayed there, we didn't have to organize our accommodation because it was the flight was canceled sort of situation, and therefore we missed our connecting flight with the same airline. So they placed us at the Sofitel Hotel, literally across the road from the airport. We literally had to walk out the door, walk across the road. We were there, and it was stunning. They had buffet dinner and then buffet breakfast, and then we caught a flight the next morning. So that was super easy, super nice room. We were so grateful after spending like 7 hours in the airport in Santorini, which is a very small airport. We actually had regrets then when we went back to Athens, because when we were back to Athens for the 1 night before flying home, we wished we were staying in the Sofitel, but we weren't. We were booked at the Radisson Blu in the city, so in the city of Athens, which was actually like a 40-minute drive. So we were like, uh-oh, because getting a taxi, that like 40-minute drive, and then having to the next day get a taxi back was going to be hella expensive, and we actually ended up hiring a car. It was going to be cheaper. So that was just kind of silly on our part. I guess it meant that we got to spend an afternoon in Athens and walk around Athens, but I wasn't feeling that well at that point. So I could have taken it or leaving it, honestly, especially after all the places that we had seen. Athens kind of didn't compare. It was a little bit dirty, a little bit smelly in comparison. It was very much like a bit of an urban jungle. Yeah, so I would have preferred probably just to stay at the Sofitel, just have a nice relaxing time before catching an international flight the next day. But it worked out okay. My partner got to drive an electric car for the first time, you know, the things he had to do. But yeah, that city was pretty gross. So I've kind of mentioned a few things, but that is the itinerary. So in total it was, so after our 1 travel day, we then had essentially 17 nights. So it was about 18 days total, but we had a lot of travel time within that, which was one of the holiday hiccups. We probably didn't plan our adventure or trip well in terms of where we went, when we went there, and how long it was going to take. Probably ended up making some financial choices that didn't serve us in terms of travel fatigue. Another thing was we didn't go in tourist season. This was probably the biggest thing, is we didn't go in tourist season. We went in winter, and usually everyone likes their European summer. but it is kind of the only time of the year as a teacher that I get a big chunk of time off, that my partner who works in retail can also get time off to be able to go away properly together. This meant that a lot of things were closed, particularly ferries and trains that we couldn't catch or that weren't running. A lot of restaurants were closed as well. And this meant that we had to catch extra planes. So for example, we were meant to, from Santorini to Mykonos, just catch a ferry, but that ferry wasn't running and wouldn't be running until like March. So instead of being able to do that, we then had to catch a flight back to Athens to then catch a flight from Athens to Mykonos. And that flight back to Athens is the one that got cancelled because of the weather. So all of that kerfuffle was all because the ferries weren't running, which is a bit of a pain. Along that same vein, because the touristy shops were then closed also, because they closed for like 6 months of the year, who knew? It meant that when we were staying in Sorrento, wanting to do kind of the Amalfi coast, I was hoping to do a tour that they do, which is like you stop at Capri and then you kind of stop at Positano and then you go onto the Amalfi coast. We couldn't do that because it just like wasn't running. Literally, we went to the tourist shop, it was closed. Next door was like, oh yeah, they open again in March. And I'm like, well, we're here now. So thanks for that. Thankfully though, there was a bus that went to Positano, so I didn't miss out on that part of the trip. Thank you to my other half for making that happen, even though I was very disappointed at the time. As much as we say that that was kind of a pain that things were closed, we wouldn't change it for the world. Honestly, I think it kind of, it's one of those things with pros and cons. It kind of made our experience. There was no one there. When we went to Santorini and Mykonos, you know, there was people that lived there. That was it. Like some people that live there weren't even there because they were away on holidays on the main island. But it meant that this like 10,000 people that lived on this island were the only people there, not the 180,000 that are there in summer. As much as some things were closed, I really loved being able to just like walk around and not see anyone and just not have the traffic and hustle and bustle, especially after being in Rome at such a busy time and seeing the touristy nature of that. I don't like it. I don't like it. We're not squishy in Brisbane. So I liked having, you know, that touristy time and then kind of that chill time where it was just us exploring. Like I said, pros and cons to that, but I wouldn't change it now. The one extra downside, it meant that, as particularly in Santorini and Mykonos, that there was lots of construction happening because obviously they do construction at times when there's not tourists around, which was a bit of a pain, but it wasn't constant. It was okay. Holiday hiccup numero dos, Naples. So in order to get from Venice to Sorrento, we had to catch the train to Naples and then catch a different train to Sorrento. We didn't realize that we had to change train stations. This then meant that we had to walk on like cobblestone roads for ages to get there. When we arrived, the last train left. It was New Year's Day and they shut for 3 hours because of the public holiday. So that meant we were in Naples, the most urban jungle of urban jungle. Like I'm telling you, there was military outside this train station. There was a cop and we were with our luggage. We'd just been on a train all morning and we needed to get another train. And we had to wait there for 3 hours. Grant didn't even move. He just stood in one spot. I sat down in my bag, pulled out a book. We didn't even want to risk it to like go to the toilet anywhere, go buy any food or drink. Like we had a few snacks in our bag and we made that work. I was busting, but it is what it is. We got there, we got to Sorrento, we got to our accommodation, we got some pizza. I got to go to the bathroom. It was fine. But that was a hiccup that we kind of couldn't tell because that wasn't on the websites or anything. It was literally just like a piece of paper on the door. The amount of locals that were showing up to get on the train and they were being told, no, there's no train until blah, blah, blah o'clock. Like there was no way we could have known that that was going to happen. Holiday hiccup, dos. Holiday hiccup, tres. I kind of mentioned that something happened with our Santorini accommodation. So that was our best accommodation of the trip. It was roughly 700 Australian dollars a night. Like I'm telling you, we were booking it to be like our best thing of the trip. We get back from, you jacuzzi it up in the afternoon, you know, go out for dinner, come back, our floor is flooded. The lights in the roof, the lights in the toilet, water, just flooding our apartment, flooding our room. So we got moved out for the night into like one of the crappiest rooms, just the only one that they had free or available just to sleep for the night. And then, yeah, we had breakfast there. And then the next day after like we had breakfast and went out, we came back, we were back in our room for the next 2 nights and everything was fine. So holiday hiccup, and it was definitely a pain, especially when you've spent so much money. You're only there for 3 nights, blah, 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 blah. But we are going to get that night refunded. So kind of a perk because we still got to use the facilities of that room, we are going to recuperate our money for that first night. So kind of a win-win, honestly. I already mentioned the dilemma with the Santorini flight when we were leaving there to go to Mykonos. Again, we got put up in our room for that night, so it didn't cost us any money to rebook flights or accommodation for the night or anything like that. So not an issue there on that front. We do, however, need to do a travel insurance claim because I want to see if we can claim back the first night that we were meant to spend in Mykonos, because obviously we spent like $400 on accommodation for that night that we couldn't use. So we're still in the processes of that. We do have travel insurance, so it should be fine. After the excess, I'm hoping to get about $300 back for that. And then the only other real holiday hiccup is, like I said, the Athens accommodation. I would have stayed at the Sofitel if I had known how far away it was. Having to pay for a car kind of sucked, especially because the less than 24 hours that we hired a car for in Athens cost more than hiring a car for like 4 days in Mykonos, which kind of speaks for itself. But it is a city, I understand it. It would have been very, very similar to get a taxi and then, yeah, so what's the point? But yeah, like I said, not too bad, not too bad, not too much of an issue. Now what you really want to know, budget. How much did we spend? Cordial cheers. So I've broken down the amount that we spent into categories. 5 categories? Yeah, 5 categories. We have flights, we have accommodation and travel insurance, food, transport, other than flights obviously, and miscellaneous. So they're the 5 kind of categories that I've tracked as to how much we spent. Keep in mind, this is difficult to do because you book these at different times and we're booking in euros but paying Australian dollars. So, and then while we're in Europe, we're spending euros, but we're having to convert Australian dollars onto the card. So it can be very confusing, especially because we were kind of, especially with our spending card, we were going, okay, we need more money, 500 Australian dollars over or 1,000 Australian dollars over. And then that was then converting to what, like 700, 600 euro each time. And so the exchange rate was different every time we did that. So this is as close as I can kind of get to how much we spent. Now I'm going to be upfront and honest that we knew that this was kind of going to be not a once in a lifetime trip, but it is the first overseas trip that we've been able to do together. We have been planning to go overseas together since we were like 4 months into dating, not even, literally a couple of months into dating, we were like, let's go overseas together. It'll be great. It'll be wonderful. It'll be fantastic. And because of COVID and uni for me and everything, it just hasn't happened until now. I also was very aware that, you know, we just bought this house. We've been talking more and more about when we're going to have children. Don't rush me. Not yet. Okay. But this is likely to be, and potentially, the only trip that we will do overseas before we do have kids, especially with all the house and land things that are still ongoing. I need to update you about that. But especially for me, this was my first trip overseas as an adult. So we really did want to just kind of have the time of our lives. And so therefore, our budget was 25 grand. Keep in mind, we live in Australia. We have to fly a long way. Flights are expensive. That was our budget. Did we go over? Well, flights, we spent total an estimated $11,000. So I keep hearing of people, Australians, trying to like plan overseas trips and they're talking about budgeting like 3 or 4 grand for flights. And I'm like, okay, have fun with that. We spent 9.5 grand alone on our flights to Italy and our flights home from Italy. So 9.5 alone on 2 people to go there and back. I will let you know that at times we did pay for extra legroom. My partner's 6'5", needs it. We didn't on every single flight. Keep in mind also we flew out on the 29th of December. So flights were a lot more expensive at that time. But like I've said, that's kind of the only time of year we can go. There's that. In terms of accommodation and travel insurance, that was 6.2 roughly $1,000. So accommodation, like 6 grand for 3 weeks. The most we ever spent was that 3 nights at 700. And this price is keeping in mind that we're getting the refunds that we're getting. So these budgets are assuming that we get all of the refunds that we are deserved. So that would have been around $7,000 if we weren't getting refunds. So that's pretty crazy. It is what it is. We didn't really stay in places that were less than 4 stars. So even the cheaper places that we stayed were still not great. There were some places that, like Radisson Blu, for instance, I'm telling you, I really wish I stayed at the Sofitel. That was like $400 for one night, and it was pretty trash, I must say. It sold itself to us as like views of the Acropolis, and you'll see in my reel that it's like so far away. It's nothing like the website says, so I wouldn't stay there again. So that was accommodation. Food. With food, we ate a lot of like snacks and like takeaway from bakeries kind of during the day, and tried to mainly only eat out for a proper like meal once a day. But we definitely splurged in Rome. So the 3 days we were in Rome, we went to that same restaurant, we spent a lot, we tipped well, we got along really well with our waiter, and the food there was incredible. I have zero regrets. I wanted to go back there every day. I was like, please, please, can we go back there again? Because you've got 3 days in Rome and you found this wonderful restaurant, as if you don't want to eat there as much as you can while you can. So we did that. We definitely, like, one of the nights spent about, was like, worked out to be like 250 Australian dollars in one night. But we only did that once. Like, we did not go crazy like that other times. So we spent $2,000 on food for 3 weeks, which not bad, honestly. That also includes tips, because obviously we're in Europe, we had to tip. But then we have transport. So this was any other kind of transport that we needed other than flights. So buses, car hire, trains, a couple of taxis that we had to get as well. So any of that is all included in this transport, which was around $1,500. Australian dollars. Again, I've converted this. So yeah, around 1,500 Australian dollars spent on miscellaneous transport. Then we have the miscellaneous category, which includes a lot of trips to the pharmacy, honestly, because we both got sick. It includes any souvenirs that we bought, some things for our mothers. We didn't buy for everyone. We were just like, nah, we didn't really buy much for ourselves either. I bought a couple of books at an airport just because I finished reading the one physical book that I took with me. And it also includes some travel tours because obviously we did Pompeii and we did the Colosseum, and so we had to pay for those travel tours as well. And then it also includes some miscellaneous tips, so any that weren't involved in food purchases. So for instance, in Santorini, we had one of the guys from the hotel was wonderful with just like carrying our bags up and down 5 flights of stairs, and I was very thankful for that, so we tipped him. And so if you haven't already worked it out, the total that we spent came to around $21,500. Because of the conversions and rates, we are saying we spent $22K, because that extra $500 we probably spent in other miscellaneous things that weren't tracked, or the extra money that we would have lost in the conversions. But yeah, so say $22,000 we spent on this trip, which was a lot, but it's $3,000 on a budget. Like, come on, what am I gonna do with $3,000? Just kidding. I don't actually probably have it. No regrets about it. $22,000, 3 weeks away with the love of my life. Wonderful, amazing trip I will never forget. Let me know down below if you think that is absolutely insane. Let me know if you kind of think that you were on the money, you kind of figured it was gonna be around that much. Now you know why we probably won't be going overseas again for a while, because that was too expensive. But also let me know where we should go on our next trip. I'm thinking, should I tell you or should I wait and see what you say? We were kind of toying with the idea of New Zealand, so that's still in the back of my mind if it becomes more affordable, because it's been trash lately, because that's meant to be a cheap holiday for Australians. So I'm kind of thinking maybe I just go like my next dream destination, which would be like Finland, Norway, Switzerland kind of deal. I want to go to Finland because my nan's from there. My partner wants to go to Norway because he's been there and it's his favorite place in Europe that he's been to, which is a lot of countries. So let me know down below where we should go next, when we go away next, which will be a while away from now. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. It's a little bit different to what I would normally post and what I normally share, but I have had so many questions about it. So many people were invested in this holiday. You've been loving my reels over on Instagram, so don't forget to go check those out because they sound so much better with the songs that I perfectly picked and curated for them. It was honestly so hard to pick songs. And yeah, I hope that you did enjoy hearing about this. I hope it's been helpful to some of you that might be planning to go overseas. I am just going to be very clear. You could do this cheaper. We definitely weren't trying to be stingy. We weren't staying in hostels or anything like that. Like, you could definitely do this a lot cheaper than we did. I thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video very, very soon. Bye guys.